Okay, hello everyone. How are we doing there? Are we ready with everything?
Recording in progress.
We are now, Mary.
Okay, excellent. Good evening, everyone. I'm going to go ahead and call the meeting to order, the City Council meeting of Monday, March 13th, 2023. Could we do a roll call, please?
Dave Anderson? Here. Carl Broberg? Here. Jen Mazias?
Here.
Mary McGrath?
Here.
Tom Nimes?
Here.
Karen Novacek?
Here.
Laura Tulowitzki?
Here.
All present, a quorum is met.
Thank you very much. Next item is our Pledge of Allegiance. If everyone would please stand. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, thanks everyone. Next item is approval of minutes from the City Council meeting of March 13th.
I'll make that motion.
And I will second the motion.
Okay, that was a motion by Tom, second by Karen. Any comments, questions, edits? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next item is approval of monthly expenditures via roll call vote. Karen?
Madam Mayor, I move approval of the monthly expenditures as reviewed.
Second.
Motion by Karen, was that a second by Mary?
Yep.
Yes.
And a roll call vote, please.
Laura Tulowitzki,
Yes.
Karen Novacek,
Yes.
Tom Nymes,
Yes.
Mayor McGrath,
Yes.
Jen Mazias,
Yes.
Carl Broberg,
Yes.
Dave Anderson,
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. Our next item is public comment, and I think if it's possible to turn the camera around so that I could see if there are people there for public comment and call upon them and keep track of time, that would be helpful. Assuming there are people there for public comment.
Is it done?
Okay. Yeah, please step forward and if you could write down your name and address and then state your name and address, please, for the council. And then we are doing a 3-minute time limit. And when you start, I'll start the timer.
Hello, my name is Gabriel Bodine. I live on 305 East 7th Street, Washburn, Wisconsin, 54891. I come here today to apply for the Bayfield County Local Government Scholarship. And I'm hoping to use the funds that I may gain through this scholarship to fund my education at Stevens Point University, Wisconsin, for a media studies major bachelor degree, where I hope to use it to further my career later in the future as a voice actor or something behind the scenes of the film nature, which I would absolutely love to do. And I do have some slight interest in government and local government of that nature, because I'm a very patriotic person, and I love the idea that the people congregate together to decide what's in the best interest for everyone, and everyone can state their own opinion, and everyone can have their say, and it all gets put out to make this very perfect union and the house at which it stands. So that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Great, thanks for coming tonight and good luck with your scholarship, and thanks for joining us, and enjoy the council meeting.
I'm Bill Scripps, 418 Fillmore. Oh, that's Minneapolis, 228 West 4th Street. I must say, as a Minnesotan, I'm shocked when I got here today at the depth here. You people are stronger than the Minnesotans. So when I was growing up, my dad, every time I hit a crisis, my dad would say it was a blessing in disguise. And it irritated me to hear that when I was suffering. And I think if he was here tonight, he'd say what Washburn is going through financially and just all this turmoil is a blessing in disguise. I think that we're going to pull through this at the end with Washburn better off than it's ever been before. And the other saying I like is saying I heard in Alcoholics Anonymous quite often, which is, if you're not sure what to do, don't do anything. So my purpose here is just to ask you to look at the financial planning for the yurts. And when you do look at it, I hope that you consider the finances before you vote. And if you look at the finances, you don't have to do a formal survey, but just sit down and with a pencil and paper. Consider the following costs besides payments and interest. Consider the maintenance costs. Consider, look at the playground. I mean, it's a tough job. Consider the cost of a coordinator to do this. Anticipate uninvited guests, be they human, rodent, or insect. I had cockroaches from running this summer. Possible vandalism. Consider snow removal. Consider floods and wind gusts. Bayfield got hit and damaged in 2005. And then also consider the fact that Holman Road could become a bypass once it's paved and could be busy along those yurts, and that might be a factor in availability or rentability. And then factor in how much you think you're going to net and compare that to how much you would get if you brought the rates of camping up to market. We had estimated we would gain 240,000. If you don't like our figures, just take a third of that, take 80,000. That's probably similar to how you'd come out with the yurts. So we'd ask you to compare that. Washburn is not alone, and it's financial. I've been talking to some people. I guess this is a nationwide problem municipalities are having. I would never want Scott's job or Mary's job. You've got a very tough job, but you're not alone, and cities are all struggling, small towns are. But there are some towns who found the way out. Wabasha, Prairie du Chien, El Dorado, Kansas, Grand Marais, Minnesota, Sheboygan, Wisconsin, Muskegon, Michigan, they all did that. They solved the tax base problem by beautifying their their waterfront property, and then promoting that waterfront property, and that brought in the tax base and the investments they were looking for. So I'm going to just close by saying, quoting from the AA again, if you're not sure what to do, don't do anything. And I hope the council, and it's a good council, we appreciate your public service, but I hope that you consider the finances and the profit and loss in all its detail before you vote. This might be a time to just wait and get a little more information in. Thank you.
Thanks, Bill.
John Hopkins, 631 West Bayfield Street. So Tom and I had a good chat. We agree on a lot of things. Jobs, jobs, jobs. We need those. We need reasonable growth in the community. We agree on that. We need a strong tax base of diversified enterprises. We agree on that. So most of us are not really in disagreement on a lot of things. Where the rub comes is how we get there. That's where the problem is for us. And so basically, the world is changing dramatically now, the way we do things. Washburn of 2050 is 27 years out ahead of us. Washburn of the 1950s, that many of us remember, possibly grew up in this community, is 60 to 70 years in the past. So it's time for us to start thinking of how we can all of us work together to build a Washburn of the 2050s. We need to start looking ahead here. And so many of you remember Washburn pretty well. And the ideas are quite manifold of what we can do here, like heat pump manufacture and distribution. There are indications that nationally we can reduce the use of energy by about 60% nationwide by just everybody using heat pumps. Okay, fuel cell applications like glass making, combined heat and power, like heating homes and offices, office buildings, bronze and iron foundry work here. Hydrogen production and transport, we have lots of hydrogen that we could pull out here. Methanol production, which comes from sequestering carbon in a fuel cell. That's a precursor to a large number of all kinds of industrial processes. Computer, particularly the quantum computer, is coming on here. Energy storage and quantum data storage. We could attract and hold young families here of one type or another if we had corporate housing for employees. In other words, if we set up businesses and we set up some housing for them. We could have paid apprenticeships here with bronze, beer, glass, iron, whatever you wanted to do. We also could have paid residencies here with grad level practitioners. There's a lot to look at and a lot to think about. And within that, there's a lot of money potentially, not that we have it in hand. And we do agree that I think, if I'm correct in this, it's not Scott's job to find the businesses to bring in to the community. It's ours. And that's why we need to get together and talk about it. and figure out what to do. And I think we can. I think we've come to a large series of agreements if we just give ourselves a chance. But it's going to take time. Thank you.
Thanks, John. Is there anyone else there for public comment?
Those are the people signed up.
Yes,
Okay.
good evening, and I
If you
want to thank all
Sorry,
of
if
you. I will tell you
If you
who I
could just sign
am.
your name there.
I'm already signed in.
Okay.
I thank you for the opportunity to address the council tonight. My name is Wendy Liebert, and for almost 15 years now, I've lived around the corner at 217 West 3rd Street here in Washburn. Now, one of the things that has drawn me here, and I'm sure this doesn't come as a surprise to anyone, is the quality of the natural beauty in the Washburn area, particularly the lakefront area, but not certainly exclusively that. I know from my personal experience and also from my role and experience as a holistic nurse, the tremendous importance of our connection with the rest of the natural world to supporting and enhancing our physical, emotional, and our spiritual well-being. I'm very glad that we have a community that's bookended by campgrounds that allow that natural beauty to be a healing force for people who visit here in our community, as well as for those of us who are citizens here. I do, however, feel that it's important to remember that the territory that we're talking about, the real estate that we're talking about that borders the lake, what is it, Holman Lakeview Drive, and the other byway right there is the walking trail. That area is a finite resource. The quantity and the quality of the nature space, the truly natural space, is what's important to that healing impact that we experience in this area. So I look to the council to protect not only our financial interests as taxpayers, but also our health and well-being in protecting this area from further human encroachment. What I want to assure you is that I support some of the proposed measures for generating revenue, such as suspending the seasonal reservations and the campgrounds, so that more people can reap the benefits of our nature space. I also would certainly support proposals for how we can expand use in those camping areas that are already established. I do not, however, find it to be good use of my tax money to further diminish the truly natural space that's available to us. Once it's gone, it's gone. I would also like to make one further recommendation and proposal to this group, and that is to engage the community in a rich dialogue, not just about this single issue, but to engage us in a process such as a Delphi process like World Cafe that would allow the community.
Wendy, your time is up. I'm sorry, you're 40 seconds over.
I'm sorry.
If you could just wrap it up.
Absolutely. So I would be very much interested in further dialogue with the community and with this council about how we can better express our values and our vision for how we can be a greater gift to the larger world through our stewardship. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Wendy. Anyone else for public comment?
I'm already signed in. Carla Bremner, 204 Pump House Road. Thanks for this opportunity to be here. I appreciate very much the thought that the council, and particularly the Parks Department, has put into working on the vacant land at West End. While it seems reasonable to turn that overflow lot into developed camping space, development of the acreage across the road on Home and Lakeview Drive is extremely controversial, including whether or not it will be financially beneficial to the city. I respectfully suggest that you postpone a decision on this parcel and allow the citizens of Washburn to actually maybe bring this to a referendum so that citizens can make the decision. Thank you.
Thanks, Carla. Anyone else?
Hi, I'm Roth Edwards, and I actually wrote this speech today while caring for a very active 4-year-old, so this is not going to be as literary as I would like. Nonetheless, here goes. Believe it and we'll see it. We're all in agreement here today. We are all actively opening our minds to and searching out economic development solutions. We are now attracting the additional creative minds and helpful resources we need to formulate and write a long-term economic development vision and plan for Washburn, centered on 1, sustainable tourism, 2, small industry based on clean technology, 3, educational facilities such as a Center for Local Heritage and the Arts. The mantra of this forming vision can be summed up as development has to be sustainable. And at this point, we have to ask the question, what does Washburn have that very few other cities and towns in the country have? We have an increasingly rare resource, municipally owned and green frontage on the world's greatest freshwater lake. This is our crown jewel. We can all agree today as well. We wish to keep open to our public green space on Lake Superior. Also, 1, we want Washburn to develop economically. 2, we want that development to be solidly based, informed by principles of rural economic development and sustainable tourism. Yet, we are met here today to discuss and vote on a glamour camping development proposed for the very heart of our public green space, one that a few here today sought to quietly push through before the public could fully view and comment on the proposal. Considering that the speech of the people is the backbone of American democracy, the question we must stop and ask is, what gives? Your perceived need to commercialize the heart of our green space is perhaps symptomatic of lack of citywide economic development and the city's consequent struggle to pay its bills. So the root cause of the city administration's push for lakefront development is clear enough. Washburn hasn't yet attracted the development we formerly envisioned. But some of that development, Apostle Islands Brewery, will be on the tax rolls within 3 years. More such substantial development will follow. And 3 years is approximately the same amount of time required to develop and get going the proposed overflow and open field camping projects. So, question, why push through controversial lakefront camping development now? A substantial portion of your constituency favors preserving the 16 acres of lake frontage known as Washburn's Jewel. We see Washburn's green spaces and their beauties of nature as city focal points and fulcrums for sustainable tourism and development. The council's seeming desire to push the project through belies a communication block between the council and its citizenry. Periodic comments from council members refer to a supposed faction of Washburn citizens who are automatically opposed and wish to block city development efforts.
Rob, your time is up. Can you wrap it up, please?
Yeah, thank you. I'm wrapping up. Thank you, Mary. But of course, there is no real evidence of that. The real evidence points to just the opposite. I close my speech by reiterating a simple truth. That is, we are in fact largely in agreement. We agree we all love Washburn and want to do our best to firmly and gently put our city on a sustainable development path. We agree that though different people have different ideas concerning development, we can agree that we must plot a sustainable path. With mutual trust granted, we can give ourselves the gift of time. By sitting down together at the table of a Tourism Economic Development Commission, such as has been proposed on council, we can and will establish Washburn's quote-unquote forever path, the economic development path that brings the entire Washburn community along on a sustainable economic development path that includes and opens to all. Believe it and we'll see it. Thank you.
Thanks, Rob. Is there anyone else there for public comment?
I am Jane Heim at 102 East 5th Street, and just like everybody else, I love Washburn. It's such a warm and welcoming town, and my friends and neighbors are wonderful and caring. And as they said in November, no wonder Jan Weiss calls it Mayberry, because it surely is. But there is trouble in paradise, and we all need to work together to help Washburn while keeping our lakefront open spaces open. I would like to bring up a few things that have concerned me through this process of voicing my opinion in a public forum to you, our mayor and city council, you who represent us. Before I do that, I want to assure you that I appreciate all the time and thought you have given to the campground expansion, and what I'm about to say does not detract or negate from all you have done. First, I heard that originally this expansion was not even going to be brought before the public, but one member of this council urged the council to do so, and I thank you for doing that. Secondly, several townspeople asked for a cost analysis of this project on numerous occasions, and I'm not aware that cost analysis has been shared with the public. Another thing I've experienced is the passion that Washburn residents have for their own lakefront. I'm amazed and awed by the passionate response I've received from the elderly ladies and gents on Omaha Street who are close to their waterfront and their favorite place to walk, and to all the other residents who are adamant about keeping their open space open. And yet, I get the definite feeling that the council tonight is choosing not to hear the pleas of the majority of the very people who you represent. It seems that our voices are not being heard. And that throughout this whole process, which is a new process for me, is what bothers me the most. In closing, I would like to reiterate what I said to the council in November. Yes, we have problems, but let's not vote for a short-term fix for a long-term problem. We need to think big now more than ever. We have so much potential in this little town, and we can capitalize on this intelligence and farsightedness to develop or bring in a company that not only helps our town, but helps the entire world. And John has brought up many ideas for that. The Department of Energy is giving away billions of dollars for carbon capturing companies and other far-reaching and innovative companies. Why can't Washburn be part of that? In conclusion, please do not turn a deaf ear to the very people you represent. And please think big, bigger than we ever have before, because Washburn, all of us, have the imagination, practicality, talent, genius, knowledge, and skills to be great. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else for public comment?
Hello, my name is Amanda Cook. I've been a resident of Washburn for just over the last decade. I'm not
Can you
going to
state
be
your address, please, and or sign in?
1300 Bradley Drive. I'm on the sign.
Thank you.
Sorry about that.
No worries.
I'm not going to be able to be as elegant as everybody else. I did not write down any prepared speech. I found out about the meeting very, very last minute, within the last 15 minutes before this came. But I felt so impassioned to be able to come and say something, because I'm going to kick myself if I don't. I know that the council is going to make a decision on what they want to do, regardless of or hopefully not regardless of what is being said by a majority of the people here, but again, I'm gonna kick myself if I don't say something anyway. I would like to say that I'm not opposed to the idea of having yurts, but I am opposed to the idea of having them right in that area that is being proposed down by the campground. I do remember the survey that was mentioned a few weeks ago in the paper that was sent out to the townspeople of Washburn, and that was almost a decade ago. There is so much that has changed in Washburn within that time. There have been a lot of people that have moved out, even countless more that have moved back in. And I don't think it is a fair assumption on the part of the council to be able to take that paper that was sent out for whatever, 100% at core salt, considering it is almost a decade old. I think a new survey needs to be brought out, and the basic bones of whatever project is being proposed for that area needs to be brought to the attention of the citizens. It's not fair for them to be paying tax money, or for us to be paying tax money on something that we don't even have a say in or know about. For a lot of people, they don't even know about it. I didn't even know about it until recently, and I do live here, and I do follow the town page and everything like that. I do wanted to, a suggestion that could be made for that area is something that was slightly brought up by Bill Scripps and other towns that have made a great use of their waterfront, and I will give you two examples. Most people are familiar with green spaces that they have is New York City. I know that's a really big scale, and I know that's not the kind of scale that we're talking about, but think of most people in the world when they think of New York City, that is one of the main tourist attractions. It's because of the green space, not because of some tent camping sites. Think about Duluth, Minnesota, the Rose Gardens up there. People go there for weddings, for graduations. They go there just for the green space. And it's right in the heart of their downtown area in that specific spot. Why can't Washburn do something like that? There's a lot of talk about the walking trail and making that more accessible for handicapped accessible. Why can't that be something that is included within that project? That would be something that everyone could enjoy. It would also be something that we could potentially bring in revenue for the city for by making it an area that is available to certain things like that, such as a wedding, just as an example. I'm sure there's plenty of other things. It's just the first thing. I do appreciate that the council wants to bring in more revenue for the city. And I think it's admirable that many ideas are being discussed. But I don't think that it's something that they should be voting on right now with the obvious opposition for how many people are opposing it, even with this short of notice that they've been given, obviously. It's not fair to the city. So I just ask the council that if you still are not sure, to please just postpone the decision. Perhaps put out another survey, something that would be a little bit more updated than almost a decade old to be able to go on. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And is there anyone else there for public comment?
I'm already signed in here, so I'm 402 Second Avenue East in Washburn, David Bradley.
Speak into the mic.
I am having trouble hearing you.
Okay. So, how's that?
That's better.
Yep, that's better. Thank you.
Okay.
You're not shy.
No, I used to be. So, yeah, the main thing is I hope all of you on the council asked the people what they really were in favor here. And most of the people I've talked to in town are not in favor of developing that green space down there. They're not in favor of putting in yurts or in RVs as well. So I don't know how many of you have asked those questions. Most of the time that I've been told what should be done, and but when I've listened to other people, they say no. So I hope you take that into consideration. And then I wanted to just say something here. You know, we're all good intentioned individuals, but that does not guarantee that we make the right decisions for the future generations that come after us. Our earth, our communities, our institutions are being destroyed by these good people. We have to shift away from a human centric and short-sighted views of what is important and real. If we pursue one's own short-term or institutional gain in ways that diminish or destroy the long-term goals of the next generations, that robs our future, which can be viewed as immoral and maybe even evil. Our natural areas here in green spaces is what now is luring people to visit sites. It draws residents who want to live in your communities. It brings in proper development. That is the new future, and there are those living in our community which have the knowledge and expertise to bring it about. And I can't name names here, but I've had communication with them, and many of us have. So let's give them the chance to lead and guide us in this area. Our real future depends upon it. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thanks, David. Is there anyone else there for public comment? Anyone else for public comment?
Last call.
All right. Thanks, Tony. And thanks, everyone. All right, we will move to our next item then, which is mayoral announcements, proclamations, and appointments, for which I don't have any. So we'll move on to our next item, which is introduction of a new housing authority director. Karen, I will turn it over to you.
Thank you, Mayor. Madam Mayor, members of the City Council, and the public. I serve as chairperson of the City of Washburn Public Housing Authority Board of Commissioners, and I would like to take this opportunity to introduce you to our new recently hired executive director, Jennifer Toribio Warren. Jennifer joined the staff approximately a month ago or 3 weeks ago, and we are pleased to have her on board. As you are aware, the Washburn Housing Authority and the Bayfield County Housing Authority operate jointly, and the joint staff is responsible for both of the authorities and for 182 housing units throughout Bayfield County. A little bit about Jennifer. Jennifer was raised in Washburn and graduated from Washburn High School. In 2024, she moved to Arizona, where she met her now husband, Oscar, and started her family. Jennifer and the family came back in 2009, where during the time when she was back, she worked at Valhalla Pub and Grub and also Chippewa Valley Bank. In 2017, Jennifer earned as an Associate of Science degree in Small Business Management and Accounting, and in 2022, she earned a Bachelor of Business Administration with honors. Jennifer is the proud mother of 2 children. Her son, Leo, graduated a couple years ago from Washburn High and is currently in active duty for the U.S. Army. Her daughter, Lily, is a senior at Washburn High and a member of Fire and Ice show choir. And we need to sidebar just a moment. The Fire and Ice came back from a competition this weekend with 3 awards against really large schools and really did an exceptional job. So not only is Jennifer the mother of Lily, but a proud mother of Lily and the show choir. During the last 5 years, Jennifer has served as the executive director of Bad River Housing Authority, so she has extensive experience in public housing authority. She understands the challenges and the opportunities of housing, and we are very, very pleased to have her on board. And Jennifer has just a few comments to share.
Thanks, Karen.
Good evening, Council. I just want to introduce myself. I know many of you for many years, and some are new faces as well, but my name is Jennifer Trebio Warren, as Karen said, and I'm excited to work here in the community and with the community members as well. I'm excited to see what we can do for housing, and if there's any issues or concerns, you know, how to reach me. So I appreciate your time, and thank you.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thanks so much, Jennifer. Welcome. Okay. Appreciate you coming tonight. All right, we're going to move on then to our next item. Excited to have our new Housing Authority Director on board. And our next item is presentation and discussion on room tax collections and expenditures for 2022. It says room tax commissioner presenter. I'm assuming that's Mary McGrath?
Yep.
Okay. Very good. And maybe I should have asked if anyone had any questions for Jennifer, sorry, before I moved on to the next item. Did anyone have anything quick before we move on? Okay, everyone's just glad to have you on board. Okay, very good. Mary, I will turn it over to you.
Okay.
This is tab 1 in your packet, everyone.
All right, I've got some things to read off, but before I do that, I want to send around the table, and I'll leave these on the counter because these are just a quick look for all of you to see where advertising dollars have gone in terms of hard copy. So they're all marked. Oh, you'll see the postcard here. The postcard, some of the advertising dollars are sent with, AAA. And within the AAA advertising, if people want more information on Wisconsin, they go to the Wisconsin level. If they want more specific to Washburn, and we get these names and addresses back, or I should say the chamber does. So the postcards will go out identifying Washburn and that we've had communication, and any more specifics will go directly probably to phone and email. Along with the hard copies that you're going to see, I would also tell you to go out on Facebook, go out on Instagram. I'm rolling those words out of my mouth because I don't use any of them, but you can go there. They're presently in the middle of a rebuild on the website and working on advertising on YouTube. So those would be just some of the spots that you're going to go looking for hard copy and social media advertising. So before I take questions on the sheet that you were given, I will also let you know that at the governor's department, or the governor's tourism, we have a letter here. Dear Melissa, who is the chamber director, congratulations, you have been nominated for a governor's tourism award in the Rising Star category. This tourism award recognizes individuals and organizations that turned big via G Dreams into exceptional results, leaving a lasting impact on Wisconsin's tourism industry. Please join us. They'll be celebrating with a, looks like a breakfast or a lunch tomorrow. Other people I'm sure are nominated as well. Mary, I know you'll be there. But just to let you know that Washburn has, showed up at the state level, and Melissa has showed up individually as a rising star. So just if that means anything that you want to read, that will be here for you as well. Okay. I will go back to, in response to the November 22 meeting, the Room Tax Commission wanted to make it very clear that the chamber was spending enough and spending it correctly. This led to new requirements, or not requirements, we knew that was there, that at least 51% of the total room tax the chamber receives must be spent specifically on heads and beds. The chamber has no issue with that since they know they already spend that and at least that. As you can see, they were within $300 of that this 2022, and they did not have any time to increase spending by the time the commission made a new request. Our new request was to separate some of the insurances, office supplies, employment taxes into another account out of the room tax account, just to clarify for everybody, for not that they were doing it wrong, but they wanted to make it clear that some monies and some time and some management is spent on town and events and business community. So that was the request that the commission made, or the committee made, in November. Please keep in mind that the amount of money collected for room tax each year can fluctuate a considerable amount. The chamber does not get the final check for the year until the start of November. That's their year, not the calendar year. That does not give them a lot of time to change course if it is the year when the room tax increases. It can also be determined or detrimental to the budget if it does decrease, which is why they tend to be on the conservative side when setting the budget for the newer year. The committee just met last week. We were dealing with the finances of the fourth quarter of 2022. At the chamber, they consider that income the first quarter of their advertising. So just know that there's that 3-month period, their end, our beginning, or our beginning, their end.
Can you just remind us who the committee is?
Myself, Bill Bodine, Beth Nichols, and Jay Cradle.
Okay, thank you.
All righty. So understanding that there's a fluctuation. As of right now, the 2023, the room tax that was just distributed by the city and the township is down 4% overall. To put that into perspective, the amount we are down this quarter would be the equivalent to the cost of our ad in Lake Superior Travel Magazine. In speaking with owners of short-term rentals, they are currently seeing a decrease of roughly 25% this winter, which would be reflected in the numbers next quarter. Anticipating this change, the chamber still chose to increase their marketing budget to $20,000, but that is not as high as they could have budgeted for based on what was actually spent in 2022. So that would just be a verbal reading of the pie charts that you've got in front of you. So roughly, well, the pie chart on the front is Washburn at 83.9% and Bayview at 16.1%. The total to the chamber was $106,702 collected in room tax. I guess as you see the other pie chart, I know Mary, you wanted more specifics. Well, you'll see those listed as photo usage, ad design, visitor guide, AAA magazine, Lake Superior magazine, Bayfield County Tourism, Lakeland Boating, Arts Guild, Wisconsin Event Guide, Bike Guide, Fun Guide in Wisconsin, Snowmobile, and ATV guides. So those were the specifics that you've seen in hard copy, and the others will be are also added with the website, the digital, and the filming and production of commercials. So at the very bottom of the back page or your second page, you'll see it all broken down by dollars, and real percentages. You'll also see the 106,702, 51% of this pie chart is listed as being spent, $54,400. And this, if you want to say this, really pinpointing separation of chamber versus heads and beds is represented by the numbers you see on this page. So, questions?
Okay, thanks, Mary. I have some questions.
Yep.
My first question is, where did the new guideline from the Room Tax Commission come from regarding the 51%? And I'm wondering if that is getting confused with the requirement by the statute of a tourism entity spending 51% of its entire budget on marketing to be considered a tourism entity.
So the 51.
So sorry, it was a double question. Sorry.
Yeah, no, that's okay. So the requirement really by the committee was to, as was based on Max's suggestion to us 2 years ago when we all sat down and met, was to take out some things, like there's envelopes and office supplies that are used for the chamber as far as events and things go. Let's start to separate some of those out. Let's keep what you really use in the tourism, the 51%. That would be some of the work hours are in the 51%. They're also in the other part of the budget, which is not room tax, which is not needing to come before this committee or this council. So that 50, it's sort of it was a weird, what would you say, sentence saying that the committee really made a straighten it out, clean it. What we were really doing was making it more line items for the advertising and making it stay within the required 51%.
Okay, just to follow up. So if 51% of the total budget is not spent on tourism marketing and development, then the chamber is not meeting the definition of a tourism entity.
It is spending 51%.
So what you've shown us here is that they're spending 51% of the room tax dollars
Correct.
On tourism marketing and development. So that's different
Yes.
than the 51% of their overall budget needing to be spent on tourism in order to be considered a tourism entity. And I'm going to let Max, I don't know if you want to jump in just to clarify.
Well, I'm going to ask you before you go, are you saying that the other membership monies and other fundraising should be included in the 51%?
No.
Then what are you saying?
Yes. So let me, before we go on, my first question before we go any further with the 51% is, what is the other 49% spent on of the room tax dollars?
That would be spent on fixed costs like rent, like salary, like associated fees with salaries, some brick and mortar things, yes. Which is allowable. If you don't have staff, you don't have an entity.
So 49% of the room tax dollars are being spent on rent, salaries, utilities, etc. And Max, hang in there, because I just want you to clarify one more thing here. My understanding is that if you don't meet the definition of a tourism entity, then you're supposed to spend 100% of the room tax dollars on tourism promotion and development specifically. So if you could please clarify.
Yes, Mary, that's correct. So tourism entity being either an entity that spends 51% of its total revenues on tourism promotion, or 100% of the room tax revenue on tourism promotion and development.
So it's 51% of the revenues, so not of the whole budget. So we don't, the number we're missing here is what is the other percentage of revenue that comes into the chamber
That
that's
is none
not
of your
room
business.
tax?
It is none of your business. What the city is entitled to, the city is entitled to where's the room tax money going and how it's being spent and that it's being spent correctly. Their other finances, no.
Max?
I think that the statute, and this is 660615, it requires a city to contract with a tourism entity. And that is defined as an entity that spends at least 51% of its revenues on tourism promotion and tourism development. If the city does not, so that's a requirement. The city has to show that they are contracting with a tourism entity for this room tax revenue, room tax money.
So it's not just the room tax revenues we're talking about, it's their total revenues.
Yes, to classify and to identify whether they are and qualify as a tourism entity that the city or the commission may forward the room tax money to, according to the statutes.
So
and if there isn't a tourism entity,
if there is not a tourism entity, then the city or the room tax commission can contract with a nonprofit organization that spends at least 51% of its revenues on tourism promotion and tourism development, or a nonprofit organization that spends 100% of the room tax revenue it receives on tourism promotion and tourism development. So if, I guess the way that I would interpret that to say whether the city and the room tax commission can determine the chamber's compliance with that statute is if the chamber shows they're spending 100% of the room tax revenue on tourism promotion and tourism development, then the rest of the revenues don't matter. But if it's not that 100%, then the room tax commission needs to ensure that at least 51% of the total revenues are spent on tourism promotion and tourism development.
so we don't need to know the details, we just need to know the amount.
So I just told you that 106 and change is the
That's
entire
just
room tax that came in, correct?
That's just the room tax, yeah.
51% is being spent on heads and beds, and the other 49% is doing the brick and mortar of a tourism entity.
It's not just of the room tax revenues though, it's of their total revenues as an entity. So like any memberships and event income and those sorts of things, that is part of their total revenue. That is part of defining whether they are in fact a tourism entity or not. It doesn't matter to me one way or the other if they're considered a tourism entity, but we do need to know whether they are or not officially.
And you're saying you're the one that's going to say that?
No, the statute says it.
Well, they set back, and they're no dummies over there either, a membership, I mean, not a membership, but a board of very educated people and many discussions with the lodging out of Madison. And the only thing that the city is privy to and needs to see is, yes, they are a tourism entity, and as it shows here, they spend 100% of their room tax on what's bringing people to Washburn. And if you're looking to go after the chamber, I wish you'd make it very clear who it is and who's doing it so that they can at least defend themselves when these sorts of questions and discussions pop up.
Okay, I see that there's a hand up there. I'm just gonna say, I'm not going after anyone. I just want to make sure that the city is following the law. That is my job as the mayor, is to ensure that the city is following the laws of the state of Wisconsin.
So you're alluding to
that
they're not following the law right now. That's what you're alluding to.
I am trying to get to the bottom of whether they are in fact following the letter of the law so that I can rest assured that all is A-okay. And so that is why I am asking these very detailed questions. And it's unfortunate that Melissa is not able to join us for this discussion. I'm going to go ahead and call on whoever's raising their hand there. I
Me.
cannot see.
That's Jennifer.
Jen, okay.
You
Go
know,
ahead.
I'm just not, again, so I think just getting to the fact of like, we're all on the same team, right? Melissa's done a great job. We have a chamber, we're working together. There just seems to be some questions. And I just feel like we don't have the right people in the room and we're not doing it in the right environment. So my suggestion is that we move on from this topic and have, oh my gosh, I can't remember the name of our great lawyer. Max, oh my God, Max. Max, since, so, I mean, it seems like Max is our legal counsel. I suggest that he meet with Melissa and the committee and go through this and then come back and report to us together in person so we can have a conversation that's, because I don't want anybody to feel like we're going after anybody here. I do agree that we want to make sure that we're doing things legal. And then, I mean, it's not like, this isn't like a takeover or some weird thing. I don't know. I don't know what's going on, but I just don't think this is the environment. And I think that we should do it with the right people in the right environment. And I do not think that this is.
Sure,
At this time.
understood. And that's where I'm going. And that's where I'm going with this, is that there does need to be some additional, questions being asked and answered and discussions to determine, whether this list that's been given to us is what they're supposed to be doing. I mean, it looks like, yes, these things are. I have some questions about how these things are actually promoted, and we can get into that when we have Melissa there to help answer those questions.
But there definitely seems like there's not consistency on what we think it should be going to. Because I'm hearing from the committee that's 51% of the 106,000 of the amount of room tax. And then we're hearing from Max that it's for the entire revenue budget. That is very different, very different. So I believe that, we need to work with the committee and the chamber so that everybody's on the same page of what the legality is. Because we're not talking apples to apples here. This is
exactly. And that's why I asked the question, because I knew that there seemed to be some sort of a discrepancy there in the understanding. And so that's why I'm asking the question. And now with this obvious answer that there is a discrepancy in the understanding of what that statute is saying, we need to do some further research. So yes, agreed, Jen. Thank you.
And Karen has her hand up. She had her hand up.
Karen, go ahead.
Madam Mayor, I have a question for Max. Is there any case law, Max, in terms of issues where a community does not have an identified tourism entity to receive the room tax? And has this been litigated at all? I mean, are there any models that say, when you don't have an identified tourism entity, this is what happens, or?
No.
That's my question. Okay.
There is very little interpretation and clarification on this issue. And I've reviewed exhaustively guidance from the League of Municipalities, statutes, the legislative history of these statutes, but there hasn't been any court decisions or administrative agencies determining either what the definitions of these mean or giving any potential outline of potential liability or what happens if you don't follow these statutes. None of that has been developed.
But it does say right in the statute, Karen, that if it's not a tourism entity that the commission contracts with, that's okay. But then 100% of the room tax dollars need to be spent on tourism promotion and development. So that's the defining factor that we have to get to, and we'll have to do some follow-up on this to make that determination.
I just was wondering if there had been any interpretation because of, case law or someone that had asked for an opinion on it. Okay, thank you.
All right, Tom?
Mary, what's the difference between
other Mary
6 years ago and today in what the chamber is actually doing. I know they have a video, and I know they cannot afford to run an ad because they don't have one to people and they don't have the revenue to do it.
Oh, I mean, everything, some of the questions that are coming forward, and you can tell that I'm hot and bothered because I invested over 10 years of my life over there. I want to make sure, and I am assured that the chamber is running on the line of the law. And to be questioned otherwise puts a tone out there publicly that they're not doing their job and there could be some misappropriation of any type. Max has made it very clear that this is, if not fluid, there is nothing really that you can stand two legs on, like you're in cement. The 51% is said what you're supposed to spend. The chamber has always worked and done at least 51%. The other amount, again, being spent on staff. What entity is going to name the chamber the tourism entity or not remains to be seen. And I'd like that to come at some bigger level than just local. So the idea of meeting with their board and the committee and other people, I mean, you've got the finances here. There's nothing going wrong with the finances and how they're being spent. What's out there is a question of law that even Max admits it's hard to stand on and stand by. So to pull a meeting together, yes, I would say that's the case. But I wouldn't want this presentation to be set aside as, number one, my anger, which I am, I get that, but that you understand the numbers, and the only thing we're going after is the legality of just room tax or their entire budget. And who's going to name the tourism entity?
So I just want to clarify, there is no question as to whether if the chamber is doing something illegal or not. It is the question of whether the city is following its legal obligation. And in order to determine that, I need to know these other, I need to clarify these things. That's all that's happening. I'm not accusing anyone of anything. I'm not accusing anyone of any wrongdoing in any way. I'm just trying to get to the bottom of whether or not they can be officially called a tourism entity. And if so, then there is no issue and I can walk away. And if not, then it doesn't have to be a tourism entity that is part of that agreement, but then the way they spend those changes. So that's the only thing that I'm trying to determine. Follow up on that line, not during a city council meeting.
Which could have been done and answered by now. So there, I'll throw that out. That's my finish.
We have tried, but I wanted to wait for this presentation to see what we were going to get, honestly, to see if that answered my question. Because if it did, then we wouldn't have to have a meeting. But I still have questions, based on the information that was given, because we were only given the amount of room tax, and there was nothing presented showing what the overall budget was. So that's fine, and we'll just have to do some follow-up.
Well, that's like me asking for your private taxes. I mean, it's like me asking for any other business. So this will be discussed at a later time, but their money in other accounts for fundraising and membership has nothing to do with room tax, and I'll leave it at that, and we will set up a meeting.
Okay, does anyone else have any questions, comments on the room tax expenditures?
And I'm assuming at some point this will come back to council with a resolution. I mean, I do think it's kind of a big issue because we're not talking 20 cents here. We're talking the other half of $106,000. You know what I'm saying?
Being spent on brick and mortar, solid costs.
Right. Is that appropriate to be spending with room tax dollars?
Yep, we've been told 2 years ago from Max it was appropriate. So
I just think that's all. But I do think it's a obviously it's a sensitive subject, and it is a lot of money for an organization that doesn't have a lot of money coming and going, and that's promoting our community. So it'd be nice to have.
And this is just.
Yeah, I'm just saying.
Sure, sorry to interrupt.
Yeah, no, I'm just saying it seems like it's a sensitive and kind of a big deal. It'd be nice if we took care of it, got the right people in the room, and then came back to council so we can clear this up. Thank you.
Yeah, I think there have been some misunderstandings over the years, and I'm trying to get it cleaned up. So we will continue to do that. And I think, just for the record, the amount of room tax that has come in has greatly increased over the past few years. And so it never used to be this amount of money that was even being questioned about how it's being spent or anything like that. So as that money increases, my level of, just like wanting to make sure we're all good increases. So,
which means they're doing their job right.
It's just making sure that we are all on the same page of understanding what the statute says about what is the definition of a tourism entity and how those room tax dollars should be spent. Anyone else? Okay. Seeing nothing else, we will move on to tab 2, which is presentation, discussion, and action on renewal of lease agreement of Thompson's West End Park boat ramp area for North Coast Community Sailing. Jacob Kaiser, petitioner.
I will move approval to renew the lease agreement, but.
Second.
You do that before we.
You need a second.
Yeah.
On the motion. I second the motion.
Sorry.
Okay, so motion by Laura and a second by Karen. And Jacob, are you there? I can't see, sorry.
Yeah, hi guys. I'm actually not Jacob. Sorry to disappoint.
No worries, I just can't see who's there.
My name is Alec Malafont. I'm actually the sailing director for North Coast Community Sailing. And I just thought I'd come by with some numbers for you if you were interested in how that went last year.
Great, yes, please.
Cool. Our total registrations last year were 118 sailing students. 94 of those were locals from the surrounding 3 counties. We do have a big, huge discount for our local students, and that's more than half of the price for our visitors to make it more affordable. So that's great. We are opening up a bunch of new classes this summer. I have hired an intern to facilitate our kinder sail classes, which take 5 to 7-year-olds out on the lake. And we're partnering with Bayfield School District this summer to offer 4 different weeks of classes just for them. We've reached out to Washburn schools as well about next summer doing the same with them, and we are in the process of talking with Ashland and South Shore as well. So yeah, that's kind of what we got. Happy to hear the motion seconded and all that. Thanks, guys. Yeah, any questions for you?
Can you stick around if anyone has questions?
Absolutely.
Tom, go ahead.
Yeah.
Before we go to vote on this, I have one question.
Yeah.
And we had problems with this last year. That area down there, where those rocks are, that's supposed to be for the people docking their boats. And people that were going that sailing were parking there, and they were asked to move and told why, and they stayed right there.
So this past summer, at the start of it, we were asked by you all to make sure that people did not park by those rocks. And every morning, the first day of classes, we asked all parents that if they were sticking around they could drop off there, that was fine, but then had to move over to the parking adjacent to the lake itself, down by the dumpster and the porta potties down there. And to my knowledge, we were pretty good about that. I never saw those spaces full, but I wasn't there at all times. So I will continue to ask people.
That would be appreciated.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you. And I think we do have that written right into the agreement. And so we'll, if it continues to be a problem, maybe we can do something with signage or.
Yeah. Sounds great.
Okay. But overall, last year went well, and sounds like a lot of, do you have a goal for how many people signed up you're going to try to get this year?
We do. With the new classes, we've opened up to 227 slots available this summer, and we're hoping to get just to 150. That'll be 32 more than last summer. We already have 48 people signed up, and we opened registrations just about a month ago. So we are well on our way.
Very good. Yeah. Well, hopefully we can get this done so you can actually do that. All right, anyone else have any questions?
I only have one. So Tony, we are going to do a little bit of work down on the walking trail this summer, right? We might move, like, are we aware? Are we working with them to let them know?
I've spoken to them. We're going to rearrange where the walking trail entrance is and put up a new sign. So yeah.
Yeah, I think some of the stuff we're doing down there to kind of clean it up and make it more like entry, and I think it looks a lot better, and I think we're doing a good job. So we appreciate you guys coming to Washburn and bringing all the kids. So thanks.
Is that a temporary change, Jen and Tony, or is that a permanent change that you're talking about?
It's a permanent change of the entryway of the walking trail. It's going to be up a little bit further with our new big nice sign that we got funded for, and kind of just trying to give more room over by that beach area and have a more like entryway. This is the entryway.
Nice.
Yes.
Awesome. All right. Thanks, everybody. And that is a wonderful program. I'm really glad to see our youth learning how to get out on the big water in a safe way. Anyone else have any questions or comments? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Excellent.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, thank you very much. Okay, our next item is discussion and action on the Park Committee recommendation for camping style and design for field east of 6th Avenue West and south of Holman Lakeview Drive. Before we get into that, I just want to remind everyone once again that it wasn't just merely a survey that went out that made the decision to do this campground expansion. There was actually a plan that took 3 years that had lots of public input, and the part that we're voting on today is just the design of a part of that plan. And I also want to remind everyone that who has concerns about the development along the lakeshore, that this literally is just such a tiny percentage of the lakefront that is that is part of that campground plan that is not affecting the lakefront path in any way, and B, not touching anything else along the extended amount of municipally owned lakefront. So I don't want to discount people's concerns, but I just want to remind people that where we are in the process is for the actual planning of the expansion, not for the decision about whether or not to expand. So having said that, I want to again thank the Parks Committee for your work on getting input on what people's thoughts were for this, and turn it over to Jen to present what the Parks Committee came up with.
Okay, thanks. Tony, you want to bring up the PowerPoint? Thank you. So this is in everybody's packet. I just wanted to kind of put it out there because I do know that, obviously our community is very interested in this, and I wanted to just want to make sure that I had everything to report out on of what we did at our public information sessions, okay? So my name is Jennifer Messias, and I am the Parks Committee member, chamber council representative. So we have Erica Lang and Jeremy Oswald. He's in the audience, so he can jump in and if I get something wrong. And Susan Hall, I believe you're here too, Susan. Yep. And Angel Kroll. I don't see Angel here. So we have two of our members here. So we were tasked, obviously, with just getting information on the conceptual development of the open field area and report back at this council meeting. Next slide. I think this is the wrong one. Huh? So I gave a presentation at these public meetings, and I just kind of edited this one for the council. So I took some slides out that were not needed.
Okay.
Can we just skip through them?
You didn't add new ones?
Yeah, I edited it. I added the whole PowerPoint presentation.
Hold on.
So it should say report out to the city council on the first slide. Tony has.
Oh, instead of public input session?
Yeah, yeah.
All right, we'll try this.
Sorry, Tony. Yeah, there we go. Okay, next slide. So when you're in committee, go to the next one. Go ahead. We had to develop a game plan for this, right? And we had a short period of time, a couple months. And so we were trying to think of the best way to do this. And so we wanted to get as many people as possible. So we decided to do, article in the paper. I know that the mayor put it also in her, in the bills. So it went out to everybody. And we made a brochure and we put it everywhere we possibly could. And we decided to have 2 public working sessions. At those public working sessions, we had a Parks Committee member record the group's discussions, note-taking sheet that we had. And then we had groups get together. I did a PowerPoint presentation to, go over what we were trying to get from from everyone that was coming and get everyone on the same page what we were trying to do. And just to brainstorm concepts and components for a possible camping area at the open field. So go ahead, Tony, next one. We asked the public to think about open canvas, right? Components of a campground, and that we can have a visually appealing campground that fits into our lakeshore environment, be proud of, natural areas, plantings, picnic areas, public spaces, anything's on the table. We wanted to hear anything that the public had to give input on. So this was what we asked of them. Go ahead. Also gave information as we thought it was important because of the 2015 Parks Plan that was done for West End of like what was in that plan. And as I think folks are aware here that this area of the open field was actually designated to be glamping. But again, not telling the public that's what we were looking for. It could have been rustic campsites. And I'll say that also, as somebody told me, sometimes no development is also an action. And so we were very open that even that if you didn't want any development, then we want to hear that too. Because sometimes making that decision is also an action. So I'm changing my wording on that because that's a decision also. So go ahead. Again, this is just some information from that 2015 West End Park Plan. That was some of the elements that they were looking at. And then it also gave a possible design of the area that we shared with the public that came. Go ahead, Tony, next slide. I know we're going over this quickly. We also then showed some examples. I think we all have in our head what things should look like. I think that, as somebody said, we're in a new era. We used to think that yurts would be out in the woods by themselves. It's not the case anymore. We used to think that rustic campsites looked a certain way. I mean, I think right now, if anybody's been camping across the country, I mean, you pull into some places and you're like, wow, this is really, I've seen everything. So just wanted folks to know that it's kind of an open slate, right? It's an open field, or you can basically, it's a campus, it's an open campus. So we just showed some different examples. This is a yurt example. You can just scroll through these. This is a yurt example. It's got a lot of yurts in one area, you know. We showed little cabins, lots of examples of glamping, canvas tents, keep going, and then just group campsites, you know, all sorts of things. So those are just kind of some of the, this is our baseline. We gave a quick presentation at these 2 public sessions. And then what we wanted to do was come up with some themes. And so we went through all of our notes and some of the different, like I said, we had a committee member capture each group because we broke into groups. And some of the themes that came out, and for me, the number one was I'm really thankful for the public that came, because we had a lot of folks that were not for developing that area. You know, they came to be, they wanted that protection, and a lot of those folks are here tonight, and a lot of other folks, and I would say the majority, and I'm being very honest, the majority of the folks that did come to our planning sessions were not in favor and had a lot of concerns about development of that open field area. But they were very gracious in giving us, if we had to do development, so number one there in caps, if development has to happen, here are the themes that came through. Start small, have it accessible, high aesthetics, natural as possible, tuck in yurts or tents, centralized parking, we don't want to have parking all over the place, native plantings, trails, pathways, protect the space, the green space, the slope down to the lake. Public space is important, visuals, keep it light and rustic. So, you know, I think one thing that came out of this is, you know, originally we had RV camping there. That is not what our community wants in this spot, right? We do not want to see big metal things. We want it to be, by and large, I'm talking about the public sessions that we had as the Parks Committee. It was very clear that these are our themes. Some concerns with group sites of it kind of being kind of mayhemmy, a little big, lots going on. We want to protect that trail. Scenic integrity is a big concern. Fire pits and smoke was another concern, having, you know, smoke coming out of that area. We know that we have a campground adjacent, but bringing those, like, a smell of smoke, and like in the mornings when people walk, you know, how you have those like leftover smoky fires in the morning, you know, that kind of stuff on the walking trail. The distance to the bathroom was a concern. One of the things we talked about was the cost of a restroom, and so we talked about sharing this restroom with the overflow camping area, and it's a little bit of a walk for sure. That definitely came up. People asked about that, but then when we talked through it, and you look at the distance of a restroom, like at Memorial Park and things like that, it's not like this is super far, but it definitely is a concern, because again, we have a little bit more of a attachment to the natural beauty of this area. So the thought of people stepping outside of their yurt or their campsite or whatever we put there and just peeing on the ground is like, yeah, you know, we don't want that in this area, right? We don't want it anywhere, but it happens, you know, if you don't have a restroom at each site. Maintenance and costs came up as a concern. That viewscape from Holman Lakeview Drive, it was brought forward that Holman Drive was changed to Holman Lakeview Drive for a reason, right? And so people are very concerned of that Lakeview. So again, scenic integrity, the increased traffic was another concern. So those are the main themes that came out of our working sessions. Go ahead, Tony. Continued themes. Interesting points and ideas. I didn't really know where to put these, but people always have such cool ideas when you get everybody together, right? So somebody's like, do something like that. Have these hammock stands out there. There's no trees, you know, have some places for hammocks. Electric stoves inside the yurts so that we don't have the smoke coming out of the yurts. Keep it as natural as possible. Folks will enjoy the privacy and not the overdevelopment. I thought those are really interesting points that I pulled off the sheets. So our overarching development themes that we came up with, like the 3 main things that one of our members came up with, was preservation, rustic, and aesthetics. You know, that's not really typical when you think of a campground expansion, right? So this is a different, our community wants something. If we develop here, our community wants something different. We heard that loud and clear. Infrastructure improvements. Start small and slow and small. Development of the edges, support for the tent sites and yurts. Lots of native vegetation, create habitat, privacy between sites. Maintain that viewscape. Trail access is important. Community space, concentrating the parking and low impact walking. Those are some of the other themes that we saw for infrastructure. So the other cool thing that we did is we just put people together in groups and had them just start sketching things out. We have them, Tony, I was gonna come early and put those on the wall, and I didn't. That's what happens when you're shoveling from a snowstorm all day. So we have these if anybody wants to see them. And so we had different groups get together and kind of just sketch out different things that they thought was important. And, you know, there's wide range. Some people got together and ended up sketching out nothing. Other people came together and sketched out beautiful things. So it kind of just depended on the group and how things flow. But we definitely got, I would say, I don't know, Jeremy, 6 or 8 different maps, would you say?
Sounds right.
Yeah. All right, keep going. So disappointed in myself that they're not on the wall. Okay, here's another example of a group drawing. Really hard to see. Here's another example of a group drawing where people just kind of use sticky notes. You can see for the parking over by, this group thought, well, maybe we should park somewhere else and have them walk over. And maybe we should just do tent sites and not do, so this representation is like 4 different kind of tent areas. Keep going. So then our committee got together and said, okay, what are we going to do from a committee? What do we want to bring forward to council? And so when we looked at everything and all the different ideas and took into account some of the themes, and basically what we came together was 4 yurts, starting small, even, you know, that you could build as, and just start with 1, whatever. But we just want to show them on a map the 4 yurts, tucking them in and doing a kind of a green space in the middle, trails, you know, simple, having the 2 little parking areas on the edges, vegetation. And so we just sketched together, again, our group sketched together something. I think Tony does a better one than that.
Maybe not.
It's in our packets.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, yeah. Yeah, it's in our packets. Somebody made it more professional. Jeremy put it on thing. But you know, that's what our committee came up with, and you guys can see it. So that's what, taking everything into account, what the committee came up with. Next slide. So, you know, for me, you know, I just think that we did take the time to have a couple sessions, because as you can see, what we have in front of you today is very different in the original RV sites that we had from when we went out for designs from a firm. And I think that we have some really good, I guess, themes and concerns from our community that if council does decide to move forward, instead of just, you know, going out for, you know, scope of services to a design firm with like, oh, this is kind of what we're looking for, and we give back that standard. To me, this area deserves way more than just the standard kind of campground look that we would get from a design firm. So I feel like we have a lot of parameters, a lot of things to give to a design firm for the next stage if the council goes that way. So we appreciate the opportunity to bring this back to the community. Did the best we could in a short amount of time, and felt like we had participation. And I think, yeah, the quote of coming together is the beginning, keeping together is progress, and working together is success. I mean, I think we have to continue to do that with our publics. And so I appreciate the time of giving it back to the Parks Committee, and I appreciate the Parks Committee, because sometimes when I bring things back to the Parks Committee, I'm like, oh, this is those small tasks we have to do in the next couple months. And so we kind of dropped everything else we were working on, and we worked on this. So I really appreciate the Parks Committee, you know, digging in and making these come alive, because it was really nice. And it's not easy, because as you can see, there's a lot of folks here that I would say, again, they they prefer for us not to develop it. So sometimes, working together and talking about the hard stuff is not easy, and I think the Parks Committee did a very great job. So that's all that I have. If you have any good questions for me, let me know. That is my presentation. Oh, Jeremy, what, you got anything else to, Jeremy and Susan, we'll see if they have anything else to add.
Jeremy Oswald, member of the Parks Committee. Just the fact that Jason Bodine, who is Bayfield County Forestry Department, did come to the group. The Bayfield County owns 3 yurts, and he just shared lots and lots of information about money, how they're taken care of, how popular they are. So, and he is available as a resource.
Thank you for that reminder. We did try to do some research for sure. And, we thought because Jason's right here, in our community, and he's got a lot, and they're actually putting in another site too. He spent one of our meetings with us and gave us a little presentation, gave us numbers, and their yurts are rented out 65%, 70% of the time. And he was saying, and his yurts are really like for a specific group of people that want to hoof it in. And he was like, because I know some people feel like, well, are people going to come to yurts in this environment? I think that was a question. And I mean, Jason was like, yeah, your yurts are going to be rented all the time. And I called a couple different places, and we talked to the Porcupine Wilderness area that they do their yurts over there. We talked to a place in Munising that does yurts to kind of get kind of a feel once we started going down that yurt path, and kind of heard loud and clear that, yurts, there's maintenance with any kind of thing like this, but the longevity, and they are pretty sustainable, and they do, Jason said they really haven't had that many issues with their yurts at all. But you have to, like anything, there is maintenance with them. But he gave us some good information too. Susan, you got anything else to add? Yep, come on up.
Susan Hall, I'm on the Park and Recs Committee. As a reminder to the council, when you consider yurts, they do depreciate over time. They are not a permanent structure. You don't put one up and that's all you got to do. They will deteriorate. You will have to replace parts of them. I have personally lived in a yurt for 10 years, and I can tell you that windows need to be replaced, and it's not a hard-sided structure. So you would need to budget for replacement of a yurt, and just keep that in mind as you consider them. Thank you.
Yeah, and we talked about that with Jason. He's had to have to do a couple little things, but not too much. But I think again, we had kind of an open slate with the community that came, and we said, go ahead. If you feel like cabins, if your group feels like cabins would be better, then put cabins on there. If your group feels like, whatever you want, we gave them all sorts of canvas tents. And I would say the majority of the folks came up with either like just some rustic tent sites or some yurts. There was nobody that was like, we think cabins are the best, but cabins are also more expensive, but they are like hard-sided and probably less maintenance in terms of, they're a little bit more durable, but they're also permanent structure and more expensive to build. That is the Parks Committee's presentation to council. And so if you have any questions for me, that's what we did.
Thank you so much. This was such, I think, a good process, and a great opportunity for people to, draw out or contribute in any way to the discussion of what this could look like. Tony, would you mind just taking the page out of the packet and putting it up on the screen if there are people still in the audience there, unless that's a handout for them, just so that they can see that final version that Jen was talking about, that the Parks Committee put together. So everyone has it in their packet, but I don't think people that are there in the audience can see it.
It's up. Oh, wait, hold on.
Oh, it's not online, yeah.
share my screen.
Yes, please. Okay, awesome, thank you. So before we get into a discussion at all, I would look for a motion on the item. And I can't really see very well because now you're really tiny.
I'll make a motion to move forward.
Second.
So approving, oh, okay, that was Tom and then Mary?
Yes.
Okay. And so the motion is to, let's see, approve the committee's recommendation for the camping style and design presented?
Correct.
Okay. Okay, discussion. Who has questions or comments? And I'm sorry, again, I can't see now, so maybe if someone could just speak up if you have something.
Yeah, I have a comment.
Go ahead, Karen.
I just want to thank Jen and the members of the Parks Committee. I was the person that said, you have 2 months and come back with a recommendation, and Jen kind of gave me an evil eye when I made that motion. But it's clear to me that they have really done the work. Had opportunities for input, and one thing that Jen didn't talk about was that this really started back in the fall with 2 public sessions also to get input. So really there have been 4 opportunities for public input. Now that was at a very preliminary stage, I recognize, but this last opportunity, I think, to enable the community to actually start drawing and saying, what would it look like? Was an innovative way to do it. And I for one, want to thank the Parks Committee for their work and for doing it in the 2 months time frame, which was the tight one.
Yeah, yeah, we did do, if you remember right, when the proposal was out for RV camping at 2 locations. It was kicked back to the Parks Committee. At that time, we held some input sessions down at the site actually, and had a questionnaire for people to fill out, and, you know, do you like one site or the other? What's the pros and cons? And then we used that information for the decision in November, went back to Parks Committee to get more information on this particular site. So yeah, you're right. It's been, you know, it's gone to the Parks Committee twice now.
Right.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. And you know, for me, I feel like, I mean, you guys know me about this. I'm all about time and doing things right. I feel like our community, you know, I was here, when I moved here back in 99 and 2000, this whole area was up to be used for condos. And the community said, no, we are not gonna. So that whole area was actually on the chopping block to continue the condo at these overlook areas. And, you know, and I was part of a committee at that time that said, we don't want that, and put it to referendum, and it did go to referendum. And then I do think the 2015 plan is important, that it did go for camping. This particular area went for camping. I'm gonna be honest, I'm a very transparent person. Everyone knows that about me. I'm on the fence, you know, is the development here, you know, completely, you know, worth losing a piece of green space that's important to our community? And again, I just wanna make sure that the council knows, like, that we did have the people that did come, by and large, to our planning sessions did not want to see development there. They were for, you know, yurts in other areas. Like, hey, can we put a yurt here? Can we put a yurt here? We just have to remember, when we dot yurts through the environment, you know, you have to put like a bathroom there. You know, like there's other costs that go with that. And so, you know, do you concentrate it and utilize a bathroom? You put it next to a campground so that you actually have a host that can like overlook that area versus it being like spread out in our community. There are pros and cons to how you develop your camping experience. The cost is another thing that came up. You know, I do think that, you know, not so much the maintenance cost, but the cost for somebody's time to do the Airbnb, to control the reservations. we asked Jason Bodine that very question for his Airbnb. And he was like, yeah, yep, I get phone calls on the weekends. Yep, I got to redo reservations. Yep. And, and he does it for his yurts. That's what he does. He's the Bayfield County Forester is what his position is. He's like the administrator. And he does say that he does spend time on that. So that's something the city's going to have to think about. Like nobody likes to work on the weekends, but guess what? Some people like to camp. And so, how that would work with the host and, it being on a, Airbnb or however it's going to be rented out. There's a lot of details that need to be worked out. But the number one thing to think about is that it's going to take somebody's time. And that time, equals somebody's time is money, right? So I think there is a cost for sure of that. The gross income is there. I mean, there's no question that the city will gain revenue and the payback of doing this will happen quite quickly. But that doesn't take into account, and that's what you keep hearing about, the cost analysis. And that's what we heard during our public meeting was, do you have that good cost analysis? And we have to honestly say, we have not, said, we're going to use, 0.4 of Tony's position to do that, and he gets paid this much, and that's how much is going to go towards that. We have not done that analysis. And the Parks Committee wasn't charged to do a financial analysis, so we did not do that. So that's what I have to add to that.
Quick question for you, Jen. So the feeling about the green space, did you get the sense that people wanted it to stay green space to be able to use it for community gatherings or utilization, or just because they didn't want to see development there and they want to keep it open?
I think
because
I think both. So I think we can all probably agree that we have not driven by here and seen kids playing here, right? Like it is not, I think we've heard a couple of times people say, well, it's not being used all the time. And it isn't a space that people use all the time. And so we did hear that, that it does have, it's, I think, more of the potential of what it could be used for the community. And also, I think the other piece of that is for it just to be a space like that, an overlook, an open area that you can see the lake. So I think, an answer to your question, I would say both.
Okay. I would like to say that I really think that you did an excellent job with this design in particular, like listening to all of those desires that if we were going to develop it, this seems to really follow everything there. You're tucking the yurts away in the corners so that it still is that open space there, yet it's maybe shielded a little bit. The question, and the parking concentrated, into two areas, the trails there for ease of access to the restroom and also down to the lakeshore path. And I like how it's, a zigzag, so you're not just looking straight down the path. My one question with the trees and the shrubs and the green shielding, I'm assuming that would be, I guess I shouldn't assume, would that be designed so that you can still see the lake from the road, but it's just like kind of shielding the area from being wide open?
Yeah, I think again, this is just a concept design. Our group is not, sure, landscape architects, but we did talk about how, since the visuals is so important, that it kind of like what we've done along the lakeshore. It's the same thing along the lakeshore. The lakeshore for a long time was like, kind of almost felt like a tunnel because it got so vegetated and most of it was invasive species. But, having view sheds is what we went through on that path, on the lakeshore path. So we have I think 11 now, view sheds that we're kind of maintaining so that you have these vistas. And I would think that tree and shrub area is going to be the same thing. You can do a clump so that you still have those views and vistas. But that's what we did talk about. Jeremy just totally drew it in wrong. Just kidding, Jeremy. Just kidding, Jeremy. I'm going to be honest, at the very end, the Parks Committee, we spent a lot of time gathering input. And so at the very end of one of our meetings, 45 minutes, we all stood there and said, well, what do we think? And so this design came together pretty quickly with so again, we are not landscape architects. I will say that one of the things that
we don't do well, if we do move forward, we better do well, is the native plantings, the community space, and the trees and shrubs. Like, I voted like down at the Bayfield Forestry. You know, we were gonna do some plantings down there. We were gonna do some plantings between the baseball field and our business park. Yeah, you know, we have not, if I went out and monitored, I would say I'm pretty disappointed in that. Because it's not easy, right? It's not easy to do a beautiful, you know, native plantings. I mean, I garden, it's not easy, right? It's not easy. And especially in this kind of an environment where it's open with native plants, it requires work and somebody to be dedicated and to do it right. And I would say that's my biggest concern of something like this is our ability to do it right. Because it gets devil's in the details, right? And, you know, and also I've heard from the community, like, you know, I think this is a great design, but yet we have like the playground equipment right now down at West End Park that is in shambles. So like we're adding another piece of maintenance. You guys have heard me say this. We're adding another thing to our parks without having a park manager and dealing with the deferred maintenance and the issues we have. Jerry's been doing a really good job getting our parks up to snuff, right? We still have some ways to go with that. We're adding, you just have to recognize you're adding another piece. We have the RV site that's already been approved at the overflow camping. That's another piece. So we're adding to the system and, you know, maintenance is a deal, right?
Yep, that's gonna have to be a piece of the puzzle when looking at the economics of this, for sure.
Yep.
Go ahead, Tom.
We had 4 meetings.
Yep.
I was at 2 of them.
You
Plus I
talking
was
at
at
the
the
microphone,
store.
please?
We had 4 meetings. I was at 2 of them down at West End Park, and I was at the store. When we were talking about this.
I went to the grocery store too.
Plus a couple of other meetings, informal meetings. But we had 4 months and come up with this design. That's fantastic. And if it's done right, it should look fantastic. But, you know, talking about money, the city used to have a parks person. And he had a person that worked with him during the summer. Because of revenue, we don't have that anymore, and the parks have suffered.
Yep, double-edged sword.
And my thinking is this revenue would help alleviate some of that. And what don't we have down there? We got playground equipment that needs to be replaced, and we don't have a fishing pier. And that should have been done after that old one was pulled out. All because of revenue. What are we gonna cut? What are we gonna do, you know, raise?
That's for another night.
Okay.
Relative though.
Go ahead. Said Carl.
Yeah, I took a trip up the North Shore, and my recollection was in Grand Marais, they were building more permanent type yurts at the campground there. And they were under construction when I was there. It'd be interesting to see exactly what they did and why they did it that way. You might want to check with the Grand Marais, or I can check with them.
I'm not sure how you would do a permanent yurt.
Well,
because they're canvas, you know what I mean?
Well, they were not canvas.
Oh.
That's the idea. All you have to do is think about the snow load right now. There would be an issue there, but it seems to me that the next step here would be a business plan where we get a little bit more into the numbers. I think what we've got here so far is great.
Yep.
It's what needed to be done. It's what was in the plan in 2015, and it's been talked about over and over and over again, and never really accomplished anything. I attended the meetings in 2015, and you know, I became frustrated with the lack of let's execute something here. So I think this is great. As a good start to discuss it. Like I said, I think our next step is a business plan where we show the numbers I think that would be the proper thing to do.
Yeah, don't look at me. Are you looking at me in my Parks Committee?
No.
No, it's fine. I'm just saying. And I agree with you. I think, we didn't do a business plan for the other one per se, right? The RV, Tony has got some numbers on the cost of yurts, but again, I think that we haven't looked at the total amount of we know how much we're gonna gain, we can estimate how much they're gonna be, we're gonna have for them and how many, days they're gonna be rented. But we never really looked into what does it cost us to run it, right? What does it cost to put in? What does it cost to be able to keep a native planting in a community space? The middle part I think we struggled with the most is what would that look like? And obviously we have a block there. I don't know what that would look like. I'm not, again, a landscape architect, and nobody on our planning committee is. That would be something, and we were just asked to come up with a concept, and then the thought was that it would be a business plan or whatever, however the council voted, then it would go to a design firm to give more details, right? Yeah.
Do we know how much the county is turning?
They range
I think it's $80.
80, which is
Yeah, I think it's 80.
which is super cheap compared to the if you look at Musine or any other yurt.
They also change it. They have different rates for the season.
Yep, different rates for the season and some of the yurts are smaller. There's some that are 5 or 6, but I would say the most of the yurts that you go to rent are anywhere from 80 to 120. Okay. And more towards the 110. And then actually when you check out at Airbnb, it's 150 because I slap you with the cleaning costs and everything else that goes in with Airbnb, right?
Yeah, I think my uncle said they were 125 down there.
Yeah, they for sure. People rent out yurts quite a bit from 120. They end up being 120 to $150, but they also sleep 5 people. I don't know. When there's a hotel right there, it's a different kind of experience. Go ahead, Laura. Laura's got her hand up.
Okay, go ahead, Laura.
I wish that the motion could be retracted so that didn't have to try to convince anyone to vote it down. Because everything I'm hearing, even from Tom, since you made the motion, is that we really do need more numbers. We need to know.
And that's going to come either way, Laura, just so you know. I mean, this is not saying, yes, we're doing this. This is saying we are approving this concept of the design, and then we would move forward with the rest of the process, which is determining the cost.
Well, do you remember we voted back in, what was it, last March? And I kept saying, I don't want to move forward because we don't have ideas. We said, oh, we're going to move forward we spent $10,000 when we went out for bids. And then we came back and we got from what we did from the RV, those 2 sites, and we got a design out of that. And then we got a whole list of how much it's going to cost to do that. So we've done this once, right? And I voted against it because I feel like we shouldn't spend money until we know what we want. But we voted for that because we wanted to have ideas. It did help, right? We all know now that toilets are pretty dang expensive, but I could have told you that. I know that toilets are expensive.
Well, yeah, it didn't help me with I just jotted down from the, some of the numbers from when we had that plan, all those numbers, the water line to the site was 9,000, the water main was 25,000.
We really don't want to get into numbers tonight, you guys. This is not what we're deciding. We're deciding on if we approve the concept of this design as what we will look at further to determine if we're going to make the numbers work. And I just want to keep it to that tonight because that's literally only the decision we're making.
Great, thank you. That's fine. My priority would be to see that the maintenance and the green spaces can be developed first before investment in something that is going to need maintenance and an unknown cost down the road. I'd rather focus on starting small. I really like that as one of the main themes that included. I would love a place to tent camp.
but not even that until we can see the trees and shrubs put in and the parking improved for both the boat areas and go all the way up Sixth Avenue West. So, but I really appreciate all these designs and everything that came from it, but all these designs came with a, if we were going to do something, then I guess this would be okay. But for the most part, I'm hearing we want to keep it wild. And honestly, I really like the idea of developing in some ways so we can bring more attention to this area, more diverse population of people using it in different ways so that we have a broader population of support for keeping this protected. And I'm not sure structures are the way. There's a nice spread, thanks to the beautiful marketing materials that came around for us to view. Thank you for that, Chamber. And I opened one up there that's an overhead view of this corridor, and it really is stunning. And yeah, I just can't see putting in permanent structures.
Okay, and these are not permanent.
Semi-permanent.
I need to remind you.
It's still, I agree. I mean, it's still development. I mean, everyone knows that I'm completely, I mean, I'm on the Parks Committee, and we put this forward as a recommendation to council, but I can't tell you that I'm completely like, oh yeah, let's develop this site. You know what I mean? Like, is it for sure? Is it worth the amount of, is it worth the amount of revenue? I also try to think of the different aspects that it does bring. I think that having 4 years, and it brings a different kind of tourism into our community and a different kind of folks that come in. And I think that's good for our businesses. So that's kind of an intangible kind of, you know, piece that we don't take into account, which I think is, I think folks look for these kind of things to come to communities because they don't necessarily have all the gear to camp and they want to experience being on our lake. I do think it's an interesting way to bring people into our community for tourism. I like to balance, and everybody's heard me say this, I like to balance what we do for tourism for what we do for people in our community. So the question is this it? That's what I ask. And I don't have that answer. And I've been losing sleep over it. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah,
Does anyone else? Is that Dave? Okay, go ahead, Dave.
I mean, they could rent one for sure. And I'm sure a lot of.
I can't hear you, sorry.
The local citizens can certainly rent one of these. They're not going to be reserved strictly for tourists, and I think a lot of them will rent them. And up until Jen mentioned the tourism part of it, I think that's something we've ignored up until now, is the economic impact this would have on our local Main Street business. So that's all I got to say. Good job, Jen.
Yeah.
Okay, anyone else?
It'd be the Parks Committee, and we did what we were asked to do per the council.
Yes, thank you very much. Anyone else? Comments on the motion? Or questions? I'm not seeing any.
Do we, I would make a motion to open the floor.
A second.
There's a motion to open the floor and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
Nay.
What was that count?
4 to 3.
4.
So to open? Okay.
Who would have
So-
Aaron, Karen, and Farrar?
I can't see who's there, so I guess someone else is gonna have to direct people who want to say something. What I would like to ask though, please, is that if you've already said what you would like to say, please refrain. Like we know what everyone there said in public comment, so if it's just a repeat of that, I don't know that, like I just want new questions or comments.
Yeah, and we can limit it.
Ideally.
Yeah, we can limit it to 3 minutes also. Yeah, so that's why I opened the floor was, you know, we've had a good discussion. Folks have gotten to see the plan. And if anyone has any input into the plan or the actual discussion, because I know a lot of people come to the council meetings and they don't they don't have our packets, right? So they don't get to see this on the screen. They could online, but I know, but not everybody does. So thought I'd open the floor. So Roth, you had your hand up. Do you have something different than what your speech is that you wrote with your 4-year-old today?
Yeah, he wasn't much of a help, frankly.
No, I'm sure he wasn't.
Anyway,
So come on up to the mic, and we'll still do 3 minutes.
Mayor, would you like me to turn the camera?
That's okay, I can hear.
Okay.
Thank you.
First, I do want to say that in my 20 years of involvement with politics in Washburn, in my 20 years of involvement here, I have never seen a committee so warm and gracious and like-minded and helpful, and just showing us an example of how to work together as a community and bring in the community as the Parks Committee. I really think that they did a first-rate job for our community. So no complaints regarding the intention. I do want to point out that there has been a core group of citizens in this community, including David Bradley, Joe Groshek, Roth Edwards. I don't know him, Cat Drag came in. But there has been this core who has worked diligently, consistently, and poured great effort, time, thought, research, writing, oratory into this question of Washburn's development. And we have always addressed this issue of economic development. And we've done it we've been accused of all sorts of things. Oh my golly gosh, what we've been accused of. But we've had nothing to gain financially. We've freely given our time. We've done it for love of this community, love of this town called Washburn, and because we want to help it in every way we can. And it boils down to that. So I want to make a few points. I did pick up on Dave's point there regarding the impact of this lakefront glamping development on Main Street businesses. And I would have appreciated Dave to elaborate on that, and perhaps he could. I question that. I question that whether putting that stuff on the lakefront, and I'm not just talking about the yurts. I think the yurts could be attractive. I mean, I've just been on the brink of just saying, okay, you have my blessing on that. What worries me is all the stuff that's going to come with those yurts. The 2 parking areas, all the accoutrements, all the stuff those glamour campers will bring with them, and also that it will energetically change the experience of the walking trail, because now we will be walking, however you want to rationalize it, we will be walking in front of rented land. We will be walking in front of people who are paying $120 to $150 a night to rent those sites and to enjoy that viewscape. And how do we know how that will feel already? Well, what is the change that we experience when we walk east of the ravine at the foot of Washington Avenue, and now we enter the open area in front of the existing condominiums? What is, energetically, what is the change of that feel, of that experience of walking that lakefront trail? It is night and day. A lot of us.
Okay, Roth, you're at your 3 minutes, Roth.
Okay, and their motive, by the way, I think you did an outstanding job earlier fielding the questions regarding the room taxes and the tourism commission. And I would say that if there's one thing that the city could benefit from right now, it would be a tourism/economic development commission, and we could bring in some very good thoughts on economic development. And so I would favor that. And I would say, just think carefully. We have time. We have all the time we need. We don't have to push through this vote today. Whatever the push is, whatever it is, if it's for economic development, better ideas are coming. They are here. So I hope you would give us a seat at the table and allow us to develop them with you and help you do far better financially than you would otherwise. Thank you for the time.
Okay, thank you. And Dave, I don't know if you want to respond to that and further.
Sure. One calculation here. So if all 4 yurts were rented out at 70%, like Jason Bodine's county yurts, that's 255 days a year. If we just average that to 2 people per yurt, that's 510 people, times 4 yurts is 2,040, and then you multiply that by the approximate, I think it's a $250 per night spend per tourist, equals out to about $500,000 a year. So that's just 2 people. I would probably gather and guess that was probably in the neighborhood of 4-person average. We haven't really discussed.
And when you say a spend, you mean people spending that money in town?
Yeah.
That's the visitor
Yeah,
spending that they're doing, yeah.
That's economic impact, over and above what they would spend, on their route. So.
Sure.
That would be, and if we just multiply that by 2 to an average of 4 people, it's $1 million in economic impact to the city of Washburn and the surrounding areas.
Okay, thanks. Is there anyone else there who wants to give, ask a question or make a comment?
We have David.
Yeah, I'm gonna ask another question here, so. Before you start anything, you have, shouldn't we find out what the costs are before we go ahead and do something? This is sort of going at it backwards. If you develop anything at other times, you want to know the entire cost, what it's going to be, and everything about it, before you start it.
So,
yeah.
David, I think that we talked about this a little bit, that we know that we need to get the cost, but we kind of needed to know what sort of a design concept we were even talking about to be able to get accurate costs. So this is a multi-step process. This is not anything being decided in stone tonight, other than this is the concept that we want to proceed with to get those costs figured out.
Yeah,
and there will have to be further approvals down the line.
Oh,
yeah, it would go out to a service. We put it out to a scope services, to a contracting firm. They would come back, give us professional plans with the costs of what it would cost to do this.
Okay.
Scott, do you have anything further to add on that as far as the process?
No, you're exactly correct on
What's the cost for that estimate?
it. Well, we would have to bring that back to you.
Yep, just like we did last time.
Yeah.
So
So,
we have to vote on that.
yeah,
So
so this is not, you're going on it today, it's not a done deal.
No.
Okay, well, that's good.
But
Now-
it's a step, right?
Yeah,
Let's be clear. I like to be transparent. I mean, once you go down, it's the next step in the process. The more you get down the process, the harder it is to pull the plug, but it doesn't mean it can't be done. But yes, it is a step in the process.
And the city will be spending more money for more design work. Yeah.
Correct. Yep. And that's why we wanted to get a concept down before we went out again, so that we're not wasting money when we go and get that next step of the actual plans, right? Construction plans.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Yes, the other question would be that, I know a lot of tent campers, don't always, go to the restaurants, they don't, spend much within the city. We've seen this other places that, it's the not the people that bring in a lot of money to the city. So, I mean, that, has to be taken in stride too, so. And, and, you know, it's, tent campers aren't, they're frugal, put it that way, so.
And I think that might have been the way that it used to be, to tell you the truth. I think people used to like be tent campers were kind of frugal and cheap and would go out in the national forest and pitch their tent.
Yeah.
I kind of think that those days are over.
Yeah.
I think that we have tent campers and people that would come into this, they're gonna go to their grocery store, they're gonna buy their brats and all their stuff to like cook. I don't think it's kind of that same concept of like mountain bikers don't spend enough money, as much money as snowmobilers. I just don't think that these silent type sport type things, I think that there's been studies out there that show they spend just as much money as people who do, you know, actually to tell you the truth, the RVs are the ones who kind of bring in all their stuff and they cook inside their RV and they have all their refrigeration and all their stuff. They probably spend less money buying from our grocery store than people who are tenting.
Except for the seasonals who actually do spend money in town.
Right, I'm just saying in general, I think your theory is a little flawed in terms of just, and I think it was true years ago, I would agree with you, but I think nowadays, I think we can't say that. I think people just spend money. Camping has changed. I think camping has changed.
Our family tent camps so that we can have a place, we look for places that have either beautiful view or lots of nature out. We can wake up to the sound of birds, not generators or doors. We don't stay in campgrounds anymore because that's what you hear. And because we're sleeping on the ground, we spend a whole lot more time in shops and spend money at restaurants because that's how we want to spend our money, not on RVs and all that. So I would pay a premium site and I would do it a couple of times a year if I had a place like that to camp. And I've asked over these years for how we can best make it possible to tent camp and experience hearing the lake when you go to sleep or when you wake up and having those walks and I'm still looking for a way to do that without, you know, burdening the city anymore with.
Okay. David, I didn't have a timer on you, but I think we were at your 3 minutes.
We took up so much of his time. Do you have anything else, David?
Yeah, okay. So, but you gotta look at, if we don't do anything with these, with this land too, what is it going to produce in the future? That's something that is hard to look at, but like I said before, we are, I mean, this is what the green space today in these natural areas, and what people are coming for.
Well, actually, green space is being reimagined as we speak.
Well, absolutely.
They're doing it different. Duluth is one of them, could be doing it different. I believe it's on Superior Street. I could be wrong, but you can go look that up, where there's parking and people can walk down. They have trees in the middle of what used to be the street, is what they were showing, and some on the sidewalks, to make it more inviting for people to walk in the local businesses. We don't have businesses down there. These 2 acres is gonna produce money for the city and for the local businesses, and a lot of money for the local businesses.
Well, we do have.
And when we say green space, I don't know if we mean open space, because there is still, it's all green space along the lakeshore, and we're not taking away the lakeshore path.
Right.
So I just.
But it's, here earlier, it's, you know, a lot of these cities that are turned around, Grand Marais is one, and some of which you've talked about. There's the person that is living here in Washburn is the person who's turned these cities around. Have we actually invited him to show us how to do that? I can't name his name, but I mean, I'm not supposed to, but.
That's correct, Showalter.
Yeah, that's, all right, that's great, yeah.
So we have a campground expansion plan, and that's what we're working on. So we're just sticking to that plan at this point. And the design still has to get worked out. So I'm going to go ahead and move on since we're at our limit. David, with that?
Yeah, you can come up. Yep, it's public comment.
Hi, this is Tracy Snyder. I live at 21 Grove Boulevard. And, you know, you look at that design, and what I'm hearing everyone say is it's about people coming into the community. But I think that design is also about people living in this community. That green space, you know, we can design that so that people can come down that area with picnic tables, trails. You know, it's not just for others, it's for people living here too. And I think that's what I heard a lot of people here say tonight, is that they don't want their, you know, the lakefront for, you know, developed for other people. It's our community. And I do think that we can start small. I mean, there's 4 yurts on there now, but given your cost analysis, it might be way too expensive to start with 4 yurts, and you're only going to do one. I mean, look what the forest, you know, County Forest Service did. They only have 1 yurt, and they went to 2, and now they're to 3, and they worked out the kinks. But I think the focus should be us and the people coming in. So I just want to emphasize that.
Right, which is why, and it is, thanks for pointing that out. I mean, it's why we did put native plantings, community space. It wasn't like imagining like what we do there. You know, is it a pavilion? Is it a couple benches? Is it some picnic tables? We also talked about putting them kind of on the overlook so that we, you know, there was a lot of discussion on what community space would look like in this area. So yeah, thanks for bringing that up.
Thanks, Tracy.
Anyone else for public comment? Motion to close the floor?
Well, second. Was that a motion?
Yeah.
Okay.
I did.
Second.
Sorry.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, everyone. Okay, so then with that, I'm going to go ahead and go to a vote. All in favor of the motion?
We have somebody missing. If somebody has to step out to use the restroom, so if you want to wait for a council member to come back in, that'd probably be great.
Okay, thank you.
I know you can't see that.
There, pretty sure of the no this whole time, and but the idea that the yurts themselves could be removed from the plan, is yet to be voted on. You know, once there's more information, I'd say I do like the idea of the layout, the idea of having trails and benches or community space there. When I think about people jogging along the trail alone, and some of the having any reason to have more people trafficking around and down there makes it safer, in my opinion. There's so many places where you go long distances without seeing anyone, and then you come upon a stranger that's just hanging out, or maybe even sleeping in the shrubs. That's happened to me, and it's a little upsetting thinking about my kids walking down there alone. Hopefully that doesn't happen often, but this is why I think any way to increase traffic and attention to enjoying that space is beneficial.
Did we get our person back?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay, I'm going to go ahead then and proceed with a vote. All in favor of the motion to approve the Parks Committee recommendation for camping style and design for that area east of 6th Avenue. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
Okay, motion carries. Thanks everyone very much for this very thoughtful and thorough discussion and presentation. Again, thanks to the Parks Committee and everyone who's participated in the public input sessions. All right, moving on to our next item, which is discussion and action on policies and plans to prepare for community development block grant application for Bayfield Street Project Phase 1. This is, my understanding is that this is necessary since we did not receive the funding that we had already applied for, and we need to get this going and in place in order to apply for additional funds. Scott, do you have anything you want to add?
No, we've done some of these things in the past, but a lot of that has been updated, and so it is required to be redone.
Okay, is there a motion on this item?
Madam Mayor, do you wish for a motion on each item separately, or because they're resolutions, do we need to do resolutions separately?
We could lump everything together.
If we could lump them together, I would make a motion then that we approve the residential anti-displacement and relocation assistance plan. Further, that we approve resolution 2023-005 to enact a policy to prohibit the use of excessive force and enforce laws prohibiting physical barring from entrances. And further, that resolution 2023-006 to adopt the citizen participation plan for CDBG program be adopted. So I would so move.
Second.
Thank you. That was a motion by Karen and a second by Carl. Any questions on the motion or discussion?
The only discussion I have is, so there's still markup in the citizens participation plan, right? Is that like, you're just accepting all the
I think that's just new language, isn't
the
it?
new language that you're putting in there?
Correct, that's, yeah, we had a plan, this is the updated plan, so.
Okay.
But a commission would have to be appointed.
Appointed.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
As we go forward.
Gotcha. Thank you for that clarification.
Yeah.
That's what I thought, but I wasn't.
Anything? Anything else? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. And with that,
Is that it?
we are adjourned.
Well, we could have spent more time.
Oh, no.
Just saying, we could have.
Thanks, everyone. Have a good night.
Recording stopped.
We could have dragged that out longer. I was ready for be here all night.
We don't have our yurts here to stay all night.